I saw that Major Gaurav Arya had made a video exposing Biden's duplicity about the end of defense aid for Israel. And I want to watch it and react to it. So, I just messed up. I randomly read parts of the actual title of the video, so I'm going to read it properly as well. End of defense aid for Israel. Major Gaurav Arya exposes Biden's duplicity. The Chanakya dialogues.
Rafah operation started last month. You're well aware of that. And Israel is progressing as per schedule. Now, what the US has done is, US has also come in for a lot of domestic criticism, especially from senior political sources or senior political figures and those people who are saying that there is too much of killing happening in Gaza. US stopped a shipment of bombs that were supposed to go to Israel, and I fail to understand the duplicity of the Americans. Use in Gaza, of course, is going to be used in Gaza. Where else? America has got a very long history of ditching its allies. If tomorrow the Russians want to hit Kiev, they'll hit Kiev. But if Zelensky wants to hit Moscow, he will never be allowed to hit Moscow. Jai Hind friends, I'm Major Gaurav Arya and you're watching the Chanakya Dialogues English. Like this video, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to press the bell icon. The relationship between America and Israel, perhaps the closest strategic partnership, or even at an emotional level, even at a historical level, now seems to be fraying at the seams. Something is not right. And there are two things that have happened. No?
America went crazy. Israel watches and doesn't understand how you can go so crazy. I think the Israeli population doesn't even understand the progressive mindset, like this virus that attacked the US that much. At this point, I think some people understand, but even so, beyond the conflict and the fact that the US acts completely ridiculously when it comes to foreign policy and even domestic security issues, I don't know if they understand the extent of logic is white supremacy. Punctuality is white supremacy. Now we're going to see that all those brown places are looking at America and using logic, which is supposedly a white skill, and using thinking to understand that the Americans are just an unreliable and understand that the Americans are just unreliable because, of course, being reliable is now white supremacy as well, probably. And why would you work with them? Why? If they're not going to be there for you and they're not going to let you do what those who don't work with the United States, every country that doesn't work with the United States can do whatever they want. Those who work with the United States will nuke them if they try to defend themselves.
Normally, these countries will have their differences of opinions. In fact, Israeli spies have been caught in the US and the US spies have been caught in Israel. They keep on spying on each other, but they're the closest of allies, the closest of buddies. But they've never got.
True, but there is a lot of distrust, and there always had been. Let's say it started when the United States had said that it's going to vote for the resolution that allows Israel to declare its independence and then try to back off of it. Maybe somewhere around there, the trust was lost.
But they've never gone public with their disagreement. Now, this is the first time that Benjamin Netanyahu went public with his disagreement on the United States.
Which is, to be honest, Netanyahu tried to cover that up about what the administration in the US really is like. He had known that for decades. He tried to cover it up for all that time. He covered up for Obama. He covered up. He never said anything about what they really are, which is basically, he just said things like, we have completely different understanding of the world. Not that they are, which I would say Islamists in disguise and things like that.
And the US responded by cancelling.
Or communists.
A very important meeting. It was not technically a cancellation, but they downgraded it. I'm going to discuss this today. Why is all this happening? Is there too much of pressure?
Oh my God. Okay, I love you, Major Gaurav Arya, but you're reading from the Haaretz.
Because suddenly, you have Canada jumping in the fray. And there are various facets to this entire geopolitical things that are happening. Now, let me take it, one by one, step by step. The first thing is,
I think Canada just recognized the RGC as a terrorist organization. Good morning, Canada. Which is surprising considering the fact that it seemed like they went completely off rails. By the way, for those who don't know, Haaretz is a very leftist, like far, far left newspaper.
That you're well aware that approximately 3.8 billion, sometimes 3.5 billion, is the military aid given to Israel by the United States of America every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say aid, this is not a purchase, this is not a loan, this is simply this much of weapons and equipment that are given to Israel every single year.
Yeah.
Over and above this, if Israel wishes to buy, then it is given the top class technology that Israel needs. America will give Israel anything, but 3.5 to 3.8 billion dollars is something that they give Israel every year. It's a gift. It's a gift, and there is no expectation of return. Now, in case of war, what happens is that there is a lot of damage to weapon and equipment. Wars are horribly expensive, and billions of dollars are spent, and nobody's counting pennies when there is a war. War is war, and then you put everything, your effort, your money, your credibility, your diplomatic sources, everything into that war because you've got to win. This is the dilemma that Israel is faced with. Israel is facing off against the Hezbollah, against Hamas, both of them proxies of, Iran, also the Houthis, also half a dozen other terror organizations, which...
You know what's cheaper? Just one very effective bomb would be cheaper than using a lot of precise, very highly technological bombs. Way cheaper. But yeah, it's also, the US had promised that Israel would have the upper hand compared to its neighbors, and the US gives way more aid to other countries surrounding Israel. Together, it's more than the aid that Israel gets. So part of that is to ensure that Israel doesn't see that US giving military equipment for, let's say, to Egypt is like, oh, don't worry, we're gonna give military equipment and aid to Egypt, but I'll give you more so that you wouldn't have to make sure they don't have anything.
Are essentially proxies of Iran. There has been a tactical pause in Gaza, which does not mean that fighting has stopped in Gaza. There is a tactical pause for a certain time of the day so that aid can come inside Gaza. That is one. Number two.
The rumors are that the woke military commandment had decided that according to their own will, and it wasn't approved by the government. So I don't know how long that policy is going to last.
Rafah operations started last month. You're well aware of that. And Israel is progressing as per schedule. Now, what the US has done is, US has also come in for a lot of domestic criticism, especially from senior political sources or senior political figures and those people who are saying that there is too much of killing happening in Gaza.
Yeah, like Talib and Ilan Omar and this Alexandria, like communists and Islamists. And I think now they actually put someone who is an Islamist as like a super senior position in the government or something around the government. I'll check it, I'll add it later. But seriously, the United States is losing it.
And the US is aiding and abetting that killing, so it must stop. So what the US did is, US stopped a shipment of bombs that were supposed to go to Israel, but it did not stop the complete shipment of other weapons and equipment, and it's saying that, well, other weapon and equipment can go to Israel, but these bombs, hold on for a while. The US has promised Israel, and I'll tell you the specifics in a bit. They've, told Israel that we are working day and night to remove these impediments, and you will get the bombs. Just give us a little while longer. Now, Israeli PM Netanyahu has criticized US for blocking the weapons because of its use in Gaza, but they're giving Israel other equipment. And I fail to understand the duplicity of the Americans. Use in Gaza, of course, is going to be used in Gaza. Where else? I mean, you're giving them other weapons and you're saying that's fine. A guy who's dead doesn't care how he died, whether it's a bullet or a bomb. So America needs to be very clear. Is it giving weapons to Israel or it is not giving weapons to Israel? And America has got a very long history of ditching its allies. I've said this many times, and the Americans have got back saying that, no, Major, maybe you don't understand the context. There is no context. If you're a friend, you're a friend. If you're not a friend, you're not a friend. They did the same to the Afghans in Afghanistan. They said, fight the Taliban. Don't worry. When this war is over, we'll take you to the United States. And you're going to have this fancy house in the suburbs with a white picket fence.
Yep.
They sold all these dreams to the Afghans, and then you saw those images of Afghans hanging by the tires and falling from the sky.
I'm going to skip that a little bit.
Let's finally have a system together by which people pressurize Russia for peace. Why is Zelensky doing that? Russia never had a peace conference. Zelensky has a peace conference. Why? Because he knows that the Americans are ditching him. The Americans, after telling Zelensky to fight till the death, the Americans have slowly, those funds are now coming in a trickle. They're coming in a trickle. And there are many ifs and buts.
It's
the NATO
interesting.
countries which are giving arms and ammunition to Ukraine are saying, no, you can't hit deep within Russia. You can only hit in the occupied territories. You can only hit, let's call it shallow. The hit should be shallow. So when Netanyahu says it is inconceivable that those arms and ammunition have been withheld, and America should not withhold because this is America's closest ally fighting for its life. These are the exact words of Benjamin Netanyahu, and I'm going to show you a small video after which I'll come back.
When Secretary Blinken was recently here in Israel, we had a candid conversation. I said I deeply appreciated the support the U.S. has given Israel from the beginning of the war. But I also said something else. I said it's inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel. Israel, America's closest ally, fighting for its life, fighting against Iran and our other common enemies. Secretary Blinken assured me that the administration is working day and night to remove these bottlenecks. I certainly hope that's the case. It should be the case. During World War II, Churchill told the United States, give us the tools, we'll do the job. And I say, give us the tools and we'll finish the job a lot faster.
So Benjamin Netanyahu says, we are your closest allies. We are fighting for our lives. Why are you withholding weapons? And then the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, confirms that there is an ongoing pause regarding a particular shipment of bombs. But she insists that no other weapons are being withheld. And then, responding to what Netanyahu said, she says, we genuinely do not know what he's talking about. You don't know what he's talking about? He's talking about those bombs that you withheld. That's what he's talking about. It's not so tough.
Yeah, the United States doesn't understand. Like, the people in the United States need to understand that the United States will not stay the United States if it continues being like that, because the United States has its wealth and power because they played a certain role in the world. Everything's going to get way more expensive if they're not going to get their shit together yesterday. It might be too late already, because this kind of thing, like the thought that, okay, gonna get trapped for 4 years now, but in 4 years you might have something like another Obama or Biden. Ain't nobody playing with that.
Those bombs that you withheld. That's what he's talking about. It's not so tough. So, Secretary Blinken, this is Netanyahu saying that Secretary Blinken assured me that the administration is working day and night to remove these bottlenecks. Now, what are these bottlenecks? Who put these bottlenecks? One American department will put the bottleneck on another American department, and the Americans will make it sound like some other country has invaded them. This is America trying to exert pressure on the Israelis. That is it. That is it. Last month, the US paused its first munitions delivery to Israel, delaying thousands of bombs, and the US supplies 3.8 billion. Sometimes I've read 3.5, 3.8, this is 3.8. But, and hold on to your breaths, ladies and gentlemen, recently passed a $14 billion support bill to Israel. A $14 billion support bill. And despite the pause of bombs, this is American duplicity. Despite the pause of bombs, the Biden administration plans to sell Israel 50 F-15 fighter jets worth over 18 billion. And this is as reported by the American media. So you can imagine, on one hand, they're stopping bombs, on the other hand, they're selling F-15s. What do they think? Where do you think the Israelis are going to use those F-15s? Or will use those F-15s? In Mongolia?
I mean,
China?
they're worthless without bombs, so...
Now, the US has cancelled a strategic meeting with Israel, not cancelled, but they've sort of downgraded it. Essentially, after Benjamin Netanyahu criticized President Joe Biden's administration for delaying arms shipment to Israel, the meeting was set to take place in Washington on Thursday and was set to focus primarily on the progress of Iran's nuclear program. Talking about Iran, Canada has just declared the Islamic Revolutionary Guards.
Whose interest is that, you idiots? Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
Canada has said this is a terror organization. Instead of the delegation that was supposed to travel to Washington, led by Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, there will only be a meeting between National Security Council head Zashi Hanegbi and US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. So, essentially what is happening is that there's this huge meeting that was supposed to happen, an entire delegation goes to discuss what is happening in Iran and how to counter Iran. And suddenly, America has downgraded this entire meeting and now it's just going to be 1-to-1. So one guy from Israel goes.
All right, that's it. I think what we are seeing now that globally the Americans are gonna have a real trouble to go back to what they were. Like, I don't know how many understand that it doesn't matter if even Trump is gonna get voted in. The damage is already done. The reputation, everything that was happening behind the scenes, everything that Netanyahu could have hid until now, just for the sake of continuing that relationship and not having to cooperate with forces that are as democratic as China or Russia or anything like that, are now being said out loud, then this is all out. This is now publicly known everywhere around the world that the Americans are not trustworthy, and 4 years of Trump administration is not going to change it, because it's a democracy and because it is a possibility that the Americans are going to elect someone that will be even worse than Biden or Obama. And then what? Then what? What would it be any worth? It's going to be an opportunistic, because like, it's Trump there, we're going to get everything we can get so that we would be able to protect ourselves. But the long-term alliance with the Americans is done, is gone. And I'm not saying that as Israel, I'm saying that as any country, everywhere. Europe, all the countries in Europe are thinking that. India is thinking that. Taiwan is thinking that. African countries are thinking that. Everywhere. South American countries are thinking that. Everybody is thinking that. And that is the fall. It's right now what we're seeing is a fall of an empire happening real time. Well, not that I like it, but you guys should like the video anyway, even though it's kind of green. Comment, subscribe, share. I have a Buy Me Coffee link below if you guys want to support me, because that really helps. And thank you very much for watching. See you later. Hopefully, America will get its shit together.